What happens when a television show becomes so controversial that its hosts reportedly end up asking police for help outside their own studio? ABC has already been facing serious questions about declining ratings across several of its biggest programs, but now The View is once again at the center of another major controversy. This time, the backlash didn't stay on television. It reportedly followed the hosts into the streets of New York. According to new reports and growing online discussion, comments made by several hosts sparked an intense reaction from both audiences and bystanders, leading to a tense situation outside the ABC studio that has everyone asking the same question. Has The View finally reached its breaking point? Because what allegedly happened next, involving the NYPD, ABC executives, and Disney leadership, has only added more fuel to an already growing fire. As of now, ABC continues to face growing challenges across several of its flagship programs. Shows like Jimmy Kimmel Live, The View, Good Morning America, and others have all been the subject of ongoing discussion regarding ratings and audience engagement. At the same time, Disney's television division continues to receive criticism from viewers who believe many of these programs have become increasingly focused on political messaging rather than broad entertainment. Among all of those shows, however, The View remains one of the most talked about. For months, the program has generated controversy through heated on-air debates, political commentary, and behind-the-scenes Q&A sessions that frequently create even more headlines after each taping. Instead of calming public criticism, many of these moments have only intensified it, leaving ABC under even greater pressure. The situation has also placed additional attention on Disney CEO Josh D'Amaro, with critics questioning whether stronger leadership is needed as controversy surrounding ABC programming continues to grow. But according to recent reports, things have now escalated beyond television. A new incident involving several hosts of The View has reportedly unfolded outside the ABC studios in New York, creating another wave of public attention that quickly spread across social media. Here's what allegedly happened. Following recent episodes of The View, hosts Whoopi Goldberg, Sunny Hostin, and Joy Behar came under heavy criticism after comments they made regarding the American flag. According to reports, the discussion centered around how they personally viewed the flag in today's political climate, with remarks suggesting they associated it with supporters of Donald Trump and the MAGA movement. Those comments immediately triggered widespread backlash online. But the criticism didn't stop there. According to multiple accounts, similar remarks were also discussed during a behind-the-scenes audience Q&A session, where the reaction reportedly became even more negative. Reports claim some audience members openly booed the hosts inside the studio following those remarks, signaling that the controversy had already begun before anyone even left the building. Once the taping ended, the situation reportedly became even more uncomfortable. As the hosts exited the ABC studio in New York, they were met by a group of people gathered outside the building. Witnesses described a mix of bystanders, critics, photographers, and members of the public who began questioning the hosts about the controversial comments that had circulated earlier. According to reports, several individuals criticized the hosts directly, accusing them of making remarks they considered offensive and unpatriotic. Others reportedly shouted words like frauds, phonies, and liars as the confrontation unfolded near the studio entrance. At that point, the atmosphere outside the building quickly became much more tense. According to the reports, members of The View allegedly requested assistance from nearby NYPD officers, claiming the growing crowd had become disruptive and asking officers to intervene near the studio exit. But what happened next reportedly caught everyone off guard. According to those reports, the situation outside the studio became even more interesting once law enforcement arrived. Witnesses claimed that the hosts wanted officers to disperse what they described as a group of hecklers gathered near the ABC exit. However, the response they reportedly received was not what they expected. Because the gathering was taking place on public property, reports claimed there was little officers could legally do unless someone was breaking the law or creating a genuine public safety issue. Instead of removing the people from the area, the situation reportedly remained unchanged. As a result, security personnel assigned to the hosts allegedly stepped in, escorting them quickly from the studio entrance to waiting vehicles before leaving the area. That moment quickly became another major talking point online, with countless users debating what had happened and whether the backlash surrounding the program had now moved beyond television and into real life. But the controversy didn't end there. According to multiple reports, ABC producers were already dealing with growing concerns over the public reaction to the comments themselves. This wasn't the first time Sunny Hostin had generated headlines after discussing the American flag. Viewers may remember that roughly a month earlier, she made remarks that also sparked widespread debate, saying there were certain situations where seeing the American flag made her uncomfortable because of how she personally associated it with modern political movements. Those comments generated significant criticism at the time, And now, many believe the latest controversy has only reopened that discussion. Critics argue that statements like these continue pushing the program further into political territory instead of focusing on broader conversations that appeal to a wider audience. Supporters, meanwhile, believe the hosts are simply expressing personal opinions, something talk shows have always encouraged. Regardless of where people stand politically, one thing is becoming increasingly clear. The View continues generating headlines almost every single week, and many of those headlines now revolve around controversy rather than entertainment. That has naturally led many people to compare the situation with what happened to other television personalities whose shows became heavily centered around political commentary. One example frequently brought up is former CBS late-night host Stephen Colbert. Many commentators argue that his program gradually became increasingly focused on politics, particularly Donald Trump, to the point where political discussion overshadowed much of the comedy that originally attracted viewers. Others strongly disagree with that assessment, pointing to a variety of business and programming factors that influence television decisions. Still, the comparison continues appearing online as critics question whether audiences eventually grow tired when entertainment programming becomes overwhelmingly political. And that's exactly where many believe The View now finds itself. According to those critics, the show's identity has become so closely connected with political debate that it's becoming increasingly difficult for the program to shift in another direction. Whether viewers agree with that criticism or not, it's a discussion that continues to dominate social media every time another controversial segment airs. But behind the scenes, reports suggest an even bigger concern may now be developing at ABC. Because while online debate continues, executives are reportedly paying close attention to audience reaction, ratings performance, and the growing number of controversies surrounding the network's daytime programming. And that's where this story takes another interesting turn. According to ongoing reports, Disney leadership is now taking a much closer look at the overall performance of ABC's programming as the network continues facing increased scrutiny from both viewers and industry observers. One of the biggest names being discussed is Disney CEO Josh D'Amaro, who has now become the focus of criticism from those who believe ABC has struggled to reverse declining audience engagement across several of its major shows. Reports also suggest that ABC executives have been holding internal discussions about cost-cutting measures and additional restructuring expected later in 2026. While media companies regularly review staffing and budgets, critics argue that the network's recent controversies and ratings challenges have only intensified those conversations. The latest incident involving The View has added even more attention to that debate. According to witnesses, one of the final moments outside the studio came when Whoopi Goldberg reportedly argued that the people gathered near the exit shouldn't have been there. Members of the crowd allegedly responded by pointing out that they were standing on public property, leading to another brief exchange before security escorted the hosts into waiting SUVs, and they departed the area. Whether every detail unfolded exactly as described has continued to be debated online, but the incident has undeniably fueled another wave of discussion surrounding the program. And that's really the larger issue facing ABC. For many viewers, the controversy is no longer limited to what happens during the broadcast itself. Every interview, every behind-the-scenes appearance, every public interaction now seems capable of becoming its own headline. That's not the kind of attention most television networks hope to generate. Critics argue that repeated political controversies have made it increasingly difficult for The View to reconnect with audiences who simply want daytime entertainment without constant political conflict. Others defend the hosts, saying controversial conversations have always been part of the show's identity, and that strong opinions naturally create strong reactions. Regardless of which side people agree with, one thing is difficult to ignore. The View continues finding itself at the center of major public debates, and those debates are arriving at a time when ABC is already facing questions about ratings, audience trust, and the long-term direction of several of its biggest programs. That also explains why so many people are watching Disney leadership closely. Can Josh D'Amaro stabilize the network and change public perception? Will ABC adjust the direction of its programming? Or will these controversies continue creating even more challenges for one of television's most recognizable daytime shows? Those are questions only time will answer. For now, however, this latest incident has once again placed The View squarely in the spotlight, and the conversation surrounding the show doesn't appear to be slowing down anytime soon. Now, I want to hear from all of you. Do you think the backlash surrounding The View is having a real impact on ABC's public image, or do you believe the controversy is being overstated? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the Woke Watch. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.